So I'm going to read two excerpts. This is from Small-Minded Giants. It's my fourth novel. I was going to say it was, but it still is my fourth novel. Published in 2006. It's set about 300 years in the future, but life is very much the same. The key differences are that the last of mankind is living within a hollowed-out mountain. They are protected by a dome from the elements. The world outside is frozen and it's sterile. There's been a climatic catastrophe, but it's not necessarily global warming, because I wanted, my focus was on the society inside. The other big change is that they are living on top of a machine, and it's how people behave in their lives affects the working of the machine, and the machine is starting to break down. As one of the characters comments, the leaders of their city are fighting over who gets to steer the ship while it sinks. So these are two contrasting pieces about how things have changed in the environment. Ana Coroa sat on the grass with her eyes closed, Julio's arms around her, listening to the sounds of birds. A gentle breeze ruffled her soft hair, mixing with his warm breath on her neck and the side of her face. Leaning back against his chest, she drew in a long breath, relishing the mingled scents of fresh grass, pine, and a dozen different flowers, some like tulips and chrysanthemums, poppies and sunflowers she knew from her walks in the conservation section of the hydroponic gardens. Most she had never smelled before. The sound of the wind in the trees brought a smile to her face, and keeping her eyes closed, she imagined herself on a wide open hillside on the edge of a forest, looking out over a balmy, sunny landscape of untamed countryside. This was as far removed as she could possibly be from the utilitarian walls of the classroom. The sunlight was warm and bright on her eyelids. Wiggling her bare toes in the grass, she turned and kissed Julio long and hard on the mouth. A soft bell chimed, and he pulled his face back, smiling at her. "Time's up. Somebody else's turn now." He gave her an exaggerated frown. Drat. She opened her eyes and gazed resignedly around her at the screens that made up the walls and ceiling, showing the hillside as it had once been. They were in a private simulation chamber. Hidden ventilation ducts blew the fake breeze across the room. The carefully regulated moisture and temperature levels mixed with manufactured scents to complete the illusion. Surround sound speakers carried the sounds of birds across the imaginary sky, along with the rustling sound of trees that had become extinct centuries before. Even the grass was synthetic, a gently sloping bank 3 meters square. They'd had to leave their shoes at the door. She patted the crease out of the floral summer dress she'd worn for the occasion. It was the most expensive thing she owned. Time in one of these chambers did not come cheap either. She had never been in one before. But Julio worked for the owner's internal climate and could get concessions, and he loved treating her. His square-jawed face and stocky body belied his somewhat nerdish lifestyle, reveling in the chaos mathematics of air currents and thermal patterns. Anna had never met anyone who could make ventilation sound so romantic. "That was fantastic, thank you," she hugged him as they walked over to the door. "God, you can just imagine what it was like." Julio nodded. "And to think you could just go out and do it," he wondered wistfully. "Sit on a hillside, a real one, for free." The main character is Saul Wheat, and he's a 16-year-old. He's a keen amateur boxer, and his father goes missing. He's accused of murder. And Saul ends up exploring the dark underworld of this city. But this is a flashback to when his father first took him out. His father's what's called a daylighter, the guys who scrape the ice off the dome every day. It's a dangerous, dirty job, but it keeps the hope up because they get sunlight. So this is where Gregor takes Saul out for a day on the dome. It was Solomon's 13th birthday, and he was big enough to fit into a safe suit. Standing in the depot's changing room, he trembled with excitement as his father kitted him out. It was against company policy to take civilians out onto the dome, but many of the daylighters did it. Some of the supervisors approved of their crew's tradition of showing their teenage sons and daughters life out on the glass. It built a closer-knit team and helped to prime future recruits for a tough and badly paid career. "Stay close to me at all times," Gregor told him as he pulled the legs of the suit up around Saul's thighs and waist and strapped close the harness built into the hips of the suit. "There's no wind to speak of today, but gusts can hit at any time. The glass is clear, but that just makes it slippery, so keep the rope taut and keep the slack behind you coiled so you don't trip over it. Got it?" Saul nodded. Gregor helped him get his arms into the suit, pushing the material up his forearms and then shoving on the big mittens that connected with an airtight seal into the sleeves. The 3 layers zipped and clipped up the front on different sides, and then Gregor pulled up the hood. He switched on the heater on the air intake and checked it was charged up. Before fitting the mask, he looked into his son's eyes. All the guys will be watching out for you. It'll be like having 30 big brothers and sisters out there, he grinned. Some people get agoraphobic surrounded by all that open space, but you won't. You're like your old man. I remember my first time on the glass. It was the first time I'd seen the sky without a roof. It was... He hesitated. Well, you'll see. I know you've been out on a tour on the pack ice, but this is different. You won't be in any vehicle this time. It's just you and the elements. I don't want you to end up working out here, Sol. I want better things for you. But everybody should get to feel an empty sky over their head. He clipped the mask onto the rigid front of Sol's hood, checking the smart lens lined up with his son's eyes. The outlets for Sol's breath fed through vents on the back of his hood to stop the water vapor forming ice on the mask itself. Gregor gave him a thumbs up, and Sol nodded and answered in kind. It took his father a fraction of the time to put his own suit on, and then he checked that Sol's safety harness was attached properly to his own before he walked towards the airlock. Sol's breath quickened as the internal door closed behind them. The air temperature dropped suddenly around them. Sol couldn't feel it, but he watched it on the readout on the inside of his mask. 10 degrees, -5 degrees, -20, -40, -60. It stopped at -73 degrees. A soft alarm chimed, and the external door opened. Even with the tinting of the smart lens, they walked out into a world of blinding white. Thank you.